Does that make you special that you wrote a book? Here's what I think. I think it does. Because a lot of people say they're going to write a book and they don't actually write a book. A lot of people say they're working on a book and they don't actually finish a book. And so if you said you were going to write a book, even if you didn't say it out loud to other people, and you sat down and you did it and you finished it, that makes you pretty special because not many people do that. And if you actually publish the book, whether through a conventional, traditional publisher or on your own by self-publishing it, that's a step that's scary and not many people do that. And then if anybody ever buys your book, that's really unusual. But having done that, does that mean that you have bragging rights? And I don't think so. So you're special if you wrote a book. You're special if you got it published. You're special if it's out there. You're special if people are reading it. You're really special if they like it, because that's unusual if you're, the vast majority of books are not read, not purchased, not published, not liked. So if all those stars aligned for you, you're special. And I think that you can feel that for yourself. But really, don't be insufferable. Don't go around and, drop that into every conversation. Oh, I wrote a book, and I do sometimes do it almost like a not mean girl thing, but kind of like shut somebody down. If somebody's, giving me a hard time about something, I'll say, well, I wrote $50. What'd you do? Type of thing, which is kind of a crappy thing to do. But most people who brag about what they did probably aren't going to be taken very seriously, because it should just be part of your life. If you're a movie star, and you've probably heard stories like this where somebody will be in an airport. I just read one the other day. They were in an airport and they were having trouble with their kid or carrying something, and somebody came and helped them. I think they helped them fold up their stroller, and it turned out it was some famous actor. And that guy didn't say, hey, I'm a famous actor and I'm folding up your stroller for you. Aren't you so thrilled that I'm a famous actor helping you? He didn't have to do that, because he didn't have to. It's just part of who he is. That's what he does. It doesn't matter. So hi there, people joining me. So if you go and start bragging on stuff, people aren't going to take you very seriously. They're going to think that what you do doesn't stand alone and has its own value just because it is what it is. It's kind of like Trump saying all the time how he's the smartest person ever and he did all these things. You don't take that seriously. That's just weird, because people who are really very smart, or people who are really very accomplished, or people who really write a lot of books, or people who do all these things don't really have to brag about it. It just is what it is. So you're special if you wrote a book. You're special if you did all those things and all those stars aligned for you. You are special, but you don't need to tell anybody that you're special. And if they can't recognize it, they're not paying attention. Also, the other thing is, and I think I touched on this the other day, when you are imagining who's going to buy your book, you would think that it'll be your mom and your dad and your brothers and your sisters and your best friend and all the people you work with at your regular daytime job and all of those things. And the reality is, they're not going to do it. I mean, maybe your mom will. I have one person in my family, one person who buys everything I write. And it's, in the scheme of things, it isn't like, it's not the money value. It's not going to make a difference in my statistics for in my ranking in sales. But what it does is it makes me feel good, because she cares enough to buy everything I write. It makes me feel good. So in any case, all that having been said, don't be insufferable. Don't go and brag to people, I wrote a book and I'm an author, and that's just as kind of gross and tacky, and just don't do it. Um, but I think that telling yourself those things, spending time in your own brain, confirming to yourself that you have value and you did this and it is special. I think you need to do that. I think you need to recognize that because a lot of people, especially women, have this imposter syndrome where you think, well, what I did couldn't be that special because I did it and I'm nothing special. So how could that be that great of a thing? And you need to acknowledge that what you did was unusual. Not very many people accomplish that, and that is valuable. So that's a good thing. There was something else I was going to talk about. Now I can't remember what it was. Something about marketing, maybe. I don't remember. Um, we've got a lot of people dropping in. I'm glad to see anybody. Does anybody have any questions about publishing or writing books or anything like that? I'm open to suggestions since obviously my brain's gone bonkers and I have no notes here. I left my notes away and they're not here. So I have no notes to refer to tell me what I was going to talk about. Okay. Well, you're not going to make it easy for me. So I think that the best thing that anybody could do if they want to write a book is to just start in and follow the things I've outlined by outlining and just work through the process and just do it. And if you finish, you've accomplished something. If you don't finish, don't beat yourself up because maybe it wasn't that book's time to be born. And that's okay too. Sometimes it's the right time and sometimes it's not. And I think it's important to know when it's time to quit. Like if you start down a path of writing a book and you think this is not going where I want it to go or where I thought it was going to go, and I just really have no interest in this story that's developing, um, put it aside. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. But it might be that the story is talking to you and you need to listen to what the story is telling you. I think I mentioned this one other time we were talking about a book I wrote about a guy who had been in World War II, and he came back from World War II and he was shell shocked, which is what they called PTSD back then in the 1940s. So he was shell shocked and he was definitely not okay. And I thought I was writing a book about a lady who ended up delivering babies, but it turned out I was writing a book about being shell shocked and World War II and mental illness and resilience and faith. And that's just what happens is sometimes your books tell you what they want to be about and you don't even realize what it's going to be about. So and that's another thing, that to spend the time listening to your characters and following them through to where they need to go, that is a talent and that is special too. So do that also. So I don't really have a whole lot to say. Honestly, I can't think of anything. I really thought I would have more to say about the whole don't be insufferable because I know so many authors who are absolutely insufferable. They're just awful. And they just lead with, you meet them, hi, how you doing? Hi, I'm an author and I've written 2 books and they're called, and then God forbid they bring it up on the Amazon and show you the link and it's like, yeah, here's my book. Not good. Not good at all. You might, if you want to get out the story that you're an author, the best way to do that is by doing some of those marketing things that I talked about yesterday. And if you do those marketing things, it is entirely possible that the word will get out that that's what you do. I see someone saying hola, and I will say hola back. And here's a fun story. When I lived in Las Vegas, or near Las Vegas, I, for a time, worked in a birth center it was primarily for Hispanic women from Mexico, and quite a few of them were undocumented. But that was before all the hoopla about that people are in now about it. And they were wonderful people, and it was very, very fun, and I delivered a lot of babies there. One month, I delivered 20 some babies. That's a lot of babies when you're a midwife for a month. So I tried very valiantly to learn Spanish and was not very successful. I could say a few things. I could say push. I could say I'm sorry. And that was probably about it. And the ladies would sometimes play tricks on me and tell me a word and tell me that this what the word meant, and that was a joke. That wasn't what the word meant. So I'd use this word, which was not nice, and everybody would be shocked. And then I would say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." So one of the worst was a not nice, an impolite name for a butt. And I was saying, feeling a belly, and here's the butt. And they said, oh, and gave me another word for it. And that was a friendly word to use. And so I started using that word, and ladies would like look at me like, what? And I thought, oh, they're recognizing that I know this friendly word. But no, somebody finally told me that was a crude word for a butt. So that was fun. But I wish I'd learned Spanish better. So anyhow, if nobody has any questions about okay, what are your thoughts on CRISP? CRISP? What do you mean CRISP? Genetic alteration. Can you explain that further for me? Can you explain what you're talking about? Is that something? Yeah, I don't know what that means. So you'd have to explain that to me. I'm sure I'll have an opinion, but I don't know what it means. Okay, they market to change children's eye color and hair before birth, but says they won't experiment further. Okay, so I don't know who's marketing that, but I don't believe that that's possible to do. And so I don't know where you heard that. If you're talking about CRISPR, research it. Okay, if you're talking about where they're doing genetic testing and alteration on eggs and or zygotes, so before it starts forming into a baby, when it's just either preconception or at conception, and of course this would all have to be done in a petri dish, not in a person, they can do some remarkable things. And yes, they probably can do that, but they can't do it to a baby that's formed in a uterus. You can't do that kind of genetic changes because the genetics are already there, and you would have to. It'd be like, can they do something genetically to you to change your eye color and your hair color? Now, you can dye your hair, and there are some drugs, some medications that you take that will change your eye color, but those are not things that people take cosmetically. There are injections. You can inject dye into your eye. It will change your eye color. That's another thing. But it sounds to me like what you're talking about is some kind of genetic thing they're doing in vitro. So I will research it. However, you have to be clear that it could be, I don't know what it is, and I don't have my tablet here in front of me, so I can't look it up. But I don't believe that you can genetically alter a being that is already formed. So if they're genetically altering zygotes or preconception, genetically altering eggs, or selective changes, that is possible. Okay, so what would I think of that? Because I can't answer out until I do some research. And if you come back tomorrow, I will have done the research and we can talk about it. But if you're talking about genetic changes to preconception or at conception before you have a fetus, so zygote stage, just cells stage, not any formed. My opinion is that um, it you can't ever do anything, one thing, without it affecting something else. So to choose to change the genetics of a baby or a pre-baby, I'm not exactly sure why someone would even want to do that. I really don't understand why they would want to do it, but I accept that there are people who do that. I know there are people who want to select the sex of their baby. There are people that want to do all of those things. They only want tall sons or whatever those things are. Ethically, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, it sounds pretty goofy to me, but if it was like testing a 20-week fetus, and if you wanted blue-haired children or blue-eyed children, and it was a brown-eyed child, and then you have an abortion, I guess ethically I would think that that was kind of gross. That would be kind of gross. But pre-birth, I don't know. I just think that it would probably cause some other kind of issue further on down the line, that it would be something that would be, because you can't do one thing without it affecting something else. For instance, and this is really a stupid example, but here's an example. Gee, the aphids are bothering the plants in the Midwest in the United States, so they drop a whole bunch of Asian beetles, which look like ladybugs, down, and now we are bombarded with them, and they eat everything in sight. Okay, I'm going to lean in so I can read what you said. It starts with exterior traits, and it leads to horrific internal things. It's unethical. We don't need mutants. Okay, so it does lead probably to horrific other things, but that's not a moral issue. That's a science issue, and it's foolish to think that you can change this thing without it affecting something else. That's not how that works. You change this thing, it's going to affect something else. It's, the old thing, the toe bone's connected to the foot bone connected to the ankle bone. You're all connected. And so you can't like change your eye color using genetics and think that it's not going to affect something else. There are people who want to change their skin color. Is that unethical? I mean, once you're born and it's your choice, should they be allowed to do that? Exactly why are we playing God? Are we trying to create mutants? Well, I think people are playing God every single day. I think that's what people do. Why do we decide that somebody that's been in an accident, if our machine doesn't show that they have a brain pattern, why do we decide that they should die and their organs should be harvested? Isn't that playing God? If you have your grandmother's very old and very sick, and you just decide to not feed her anymore so that she dies, isn't that playing God? If you decide you're going to wear glasses because your eyes are bad, isn't that kind of like cheating God? So I think there's lots of ways you could look at it. As far as mutants go, that is the least of your worries, friend. There are people out there that are so not what you would think of as normal, and they walk among us, and they are very, very different looking people on the inside where you can't see. So I think you should worry about other things and not that. Let people do what they're going to do. And if they have screwed up kids, you can't save everybody. You can't, there are other ways people are screwing up their kids besides deciding they want them to have a particular eye color. Yeah, this new technology will allow us to create new humans far beyond our capabilities. Well, maybe it can, maybe it can't. Maybe AI is going to take over the whole damn world and we aren't going to be able to do anything. I don't know. I think that my dad would be like 110 years old now if he was alive. And he only died a few years ago. He died when he was in his 90s. So when I would talk to him and he would tell me stories of when he was a child, And I thought about all the things he saw throughout his life, and things have only just gone faster since then. So in his lifetime, he went from being a kid growing up in farmland in Southern California and riding in a wagon to his dad getting the first car in the county to he was sitting there with a computer on his lap and a TV that he could watch anything he wanted all around the world. And, it was just phenomenal to him. So I don't think genetic alteration is the key to combating AI. No, I do not think that. I don't think that genetic alteration combats AI. Not at all. Not even remotely. I don't know what. I don't think we're going to combat AI. Do you think that when somebody invented the electric refrigerator, that the man who delivered ice to all the houses that had ice boxes, do you think that man said, "Oh, I can't believe this. They're taking away my livelihood. They're changing everything." Of course he did, because that is the way of it. You can't stop progress. Whether you think it's positive or not, it's progress, and progress will go on. And as disturbing as it is, things are going to change, and they are not going to be what you expected them to be or what you want them to be or what you remember them having been. Things will change. And the best thing you can do is to accept it. Yes, 2026 is a different era from 20 years ago. And 2006 was a different era from 1986 and from 1966 and from 1946, and go back and go forward. It doesn't matter. It's just going to change. Things are just going to change. People are going to change. Attitudes are going to change. Entertainments are going to change. Technology is going to change. The foods we eat are going to change. It's all going to change. Now, the trick is for us to hopefully, within our own sphere of how we live, to change things for the better and not for the worst. Now, on that note, I'm going to end this because we got into something that I was not planning on talking about. But thanks for something to think about, and I'm going to look up CRISPR. Thank you very much for bringing that out to me. Talk to you later. Bye.